Hello and welcome. I am Ben the Best 5, and this is in fact my first ever video. I'm going to be doing a bit of a Kerbal Space Program series, which features absolutely no mods whatsoever, completely stock. It's also going to be demonstrating the most efficient way to perform career mode missions through things like reusable rockets, as well as using cheap parts. So here I will be selecting a mission which I had previously determined, which is a fairly standard mission which you will be seeing in career mode. It's a fairly standard send a small satellite, no other specifications, to a very specific orbit around the moon, or month, should I say. Yeah, you'll see these kinds of missions a lot during career mode, and they're especially good, so I'm going to accept it and then go ahead and complete it. So this is the rocket that will be used to complete the mission. I call it the N-class rocket, short for Nano, and it's a really small rocket made out of 0.625 diameter parts, and it only carries a 200 kilogram payload to Mun orbit, and only costs, so it costs $10,000 to launch. However, about half of the cost can be recovered because, as you can see there, it's got a probe core as well as parachutes on the lower stage, so the lower stage there can be recovered, recovering up to about half the cost. So now I'm just going to take it off and do a fairly standard launch. So I'm going to do a gravity assist and try to be at about 45 degrees by 10 kilometers. Just for time's sake and convenience, just because you don't need to see all of this. This is sped up footage of the actual ascent itself. As you can see there, I've set it so that you can view both the periapsis and axial axis in the lower left hand side of the screen. And this is incredibly important because for the whole recovery, as well, for the recovery of this to work, it has to be able to send the first stage on a suborbital trajectory, which is high enough that it's got enough time for the upper stage to circularize and get into orbit. So as you can see, it's about to detach. There we go, that lower stage has been detached, and it was just high enough to be on a suborbital trajectory, although after aerodynamic resistance kicks in, it will be on a below suborbital trajectory, but that's okay, we'll still have enough time to switch to it before it crashes into the ground. And we're just going to power up the engine of this second stage here for a little bit to help pull it nice and clear to 80 kilometers, which is nice and high above the atmosphere. So yes, now that we are through, we deployed the nose cone over there, you can see it, because that was acting as a structural fairing almost. And we can deploy the breakables such as the solar panel as well as the antenna, which if they were deployed mid-flight, it would snap off. And now we can set up a circularization maneuver node around Kerbin to get ourselves in a Kerbin parking orbit and prepare for a Mun transition. Now I've just sped up the footage here while we wait for it to get to that maneuver node and we can execute that burn. Here we are, just circularizing around Kerbin. Because this doesn't have targeting of maneuver nodes, I just got to follow it manually, but that's not too difficult. Alright, we're now orbiting Kerbin, and now we got to switch to the lower stage quite quickly so it doesn't, so we can recover it and recover an engine in stock. Now I've just set it so it targets prograde, so retrograde, and this is so that the batteries up the top as well as the decoupler tend to suffer from overheating problems if it goes head first. However, the engine side can withstand the additional force that's applied to it. So yeah, if it doesn't matter if it wobbles a bit like here, because it will still naturally fall so that the engines are at the base and take the majority of the aerodynamic forces as well as the heating, which stops things like the decoupler and the batteries from destroying. So yes, this rocket booster isn't very big, so it doesn't require any kind of re-entry burning to help it slow down enough for parachute deployment or to stop it from burning up during re-entry. However, some of my bigger rockets that can be recovered do require this. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So here we go, the re-entry phase is more or less complete at this stage yet. So now it's just going to start falling through the atmosphere. Yeah. And now I've just sped up while the parachutes deploy. Takes a few minutes for it to get back down to the ground. I figured all of that footage would be pretty boring, just displaying it. So here it is, it's coming down to the ground, slowing itself down, parachutes are all the way deployed, and just before it hits the ground, I'm going to come out of time warp and slow it down, so because as soon as it hits the water, I want to recover it before it has a chance to tip over. Because when recovering parachutes with boosters, particularly ones that land in the water, it can tip over and smash. However, it can be recovered nicely there, which stops it from breaking. As you can see here, about 5.5 grand was recovered with the recovery of the booster, which has significantly reduced the cost of the actual launch to our company, which is ideal for making profit in a career mode, say. Now, that's only the first half of the mission. Now we need to complete the second half of the mission, which is actually sending the probe to the required orbit, as specified by the contract. So I'm just going to set up a rough MUN encounter. I just guessed it. Played this game a lot, so I can just sort of eyeball these things. Yeah, but yeah. And now I'm going to try and so for the initial burn to get there, I'm just going to get the apoapsis so that it's near a similar level to that which I want to get our initial height, orbital height to, and then I'm going to perform our inclination adjustment closer to the moon, because inclination adjustments are more efficient when they're performed further away from the celestial body that it's in its sphere of influence of. So just before it hits the MUN will in fact be the point where it's at its furthest away, and thus the burn can be done at its most efficient. And now I'm just using the rough maneuver guides to help get me close to the intended target, but because this doesn't have maneuver node tracking, I had to manually follow the target, but that's not too difficult. And yes, this is sped up footage of me performing a MUN encounter burn. Just making some final little adjustments to get ourselves nice and close to where we wanted to according to the maneuver burn, and that burn is complete. And now I'm going to set up a maneuver node, like I previously said, at the edge of the orbit just before it hits the MUN, and I'm going to use this to now adjust our inclination so that it's at the same polar orbit specifications, or same polar orbit inclination as the target orbit. So here's just some sped up footage of me making the maneuver node. Took some time, mostly just trial and error guessing until I got one which I was satisfied with. Alright, and here I am about to perform the burn. And I'm just performing the burn here. Now you notice that I started burning before the indicator told me to. That's just because I ran it at 5% throttle. So, if you're going to start burns like this, then you want to generally start indicating. The general indication is if you're moving at 5% throttle, then you want to multiply the burn time by 20, which means you need to adjust your burn time start for that. And here I am just setting up a quick circularization, and here I am circularizing around the mun, trying to get my apoapsis and periapsis as close to the target orbit as possible to make my maneuvers nice and cheap once I'm making them to adjust it. Now I'm going to set up a maneuver node to alter the inclination a bit more, because although I came in at polar orbit, which was slightly off, just simply due to where the mun was when it was launched, etc, etc, etc. That's not too bad though. That's something I can quite easily fix. So I'm just gonna cut to the execution of this burn now, and actually took me less delta V than I thought it would, which is great. And now as you can see when I move my mouse around, yep, so both the periapsis and the apoapsis are a bit lower than the specified orbit, so I'm just gonna make a couple of burns now real quickly. So burn number 1 to raise 1. So now it's correct and where the target orbit is, and here's just a second burn to increase my orbit to the specified orbit. And now my probe satellite is now in the correct orbit, and yeah. Now I'm just going to check on the contract menu to confirm that the contract has been completed. It's being completed, that's great. And now I'm going to decouple the payload from the now mostly spent booster so that it can happily float through space and provide short-range relay communication. So yes, thank you to anyone who managed to sit through this far through the video. Hope you enjoyed it. This is the end. This is showing you hopefully how to complete career mode missions as efficiently as possible by doing things like building small satellites as well as by using reusable rocket boosters.